This is the Segovia Show.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Segovia Show. I am your host, Segovia. Today, I'm joined by what I would probably dub as the jack of all trades in some tech space, Justin. Justin, welcome to the Segovia Show. By all means, let the audience know who you are and what do you do.
Thanks for having me on the show. I'm Justin Debry. I am the founder of Truth the Objective Reality, which also goes by the acronym TTOR, which you can see right there on screen. I started TTOR actually as a blog in 2013 that was strictly about covering Christian apologetics topics. But over time, I graduated into doing videos covering the same said topics. And then over time, I got into all tech sites. I started covering current events and tech censorship news. And sometimes I was able to combine Christian apologetics and current events analysis into one video because many times in the real world, the two overlap. Oh. And so over time, I've built up a audience across various alt tech websites. So I have a channel on Joshu TV. I have a channel on YouTube, on BitChute, on Rumble. I'm on YouTube now after I was off for like 4 years. And I also have my own video sharing site called Quarter that we will be talking about later on in more detail. Yeah. So I'm all over the place as far as videos, but if all goes wrong and everyone else decides to adopt YouTube censorship policies, I'll have my own site to post my content on. So they'll never get rid of me, in the words of the Highlander.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's how you and I came across each other. We're over on Gab, and I saw, I think, Corridor Official pop up, and I have to give a shout out. I think his handle, he's like there, then he's gone every now and then. Like he either gets banned and unbanned. I don't know how that works. It's across different social medias. GK Media. So if you're watching, thank you. He's the one that posted about Corridor TV, and that's how I looked into it, just because like I'm always open to putting my show across other platforms as well, or wherever I can make it possible, available. And the least work from my end, the better. And I use StreamYard to talk to my my guests. But when I generate my content, that's normally something I do locally. So when I upload, I normally had uploaded to YouTube. So YouTube, I then have it being sent over to Rumble. It sends over to BitChute and Odyssey. And Odyssey has my entire library backed up, so that's good. So I had to manually upload to UMaker, which is something that I joined last year. I was one of the early ones to get picked. That was pretty awesome to publish there. And Gap TV, when I decided to go that route and I went pro there last year, like, you know what, I'll try this out. And I had actually the biggest growth that I've experienced over on Gap TV. So when I saw this Corridor TV thing, so like, you know what, I didn't mind, like, you know, I'll check it out. And I was, first off, it's mind-boggling that it's that feature rich, because you recently launched this, didn't you?
Yeah, it's like about gosh, when did I launch this? Well, we're in December now. I think I launched this like 5-6 months ago.
Wow. Yeah, because it doesn't have a mirroring service per se, but what it does have is the ability to bring over content from your other channels. Because I have used the import link to bring like certain YouTube videos over, but I also tried it for Rumble, and I think I tried it for Odyssey too, and it works. So it's not just limited to YouTube, which I think it's actually pretty cool, because there's Vimeo, Dailymotion. I don't know if people can try that, but it's there. Can people use that too? Or
as far as the video importer, yeah, anyone can import videos as long as you have the link and it's on one of the sites that is on the list of sites that it allows you to import videos from, which I think in the actual video uploader page itself, there's actually a hyperlink you can click on that actually tells you what the list is of all the different sites. It takes a while to scroll through the list. It's pretty long. But yeah, like you could grab a video off of Fox News and import it to your channel if you really wanted to, or a Twitter video, or, you know, whatever. I'm just quickly bringing up the upload page so I can make sure that I know of which I speak. Let's see.
It's only one of the several projects you got going on, right?
Yeah, there's import video. Oh, yeah. So there is a hyperlink. And actually, let me screen share that if you will
Yeah, if it asks me,
allow.
I'll let you.
All right, because I'm just going to screen share the list itself.
Okay.
Boom. Okay, got it. And can you
Let
see
me.
my thing?
Yeah, I'm adding the stream.
So
But
yeah, you see here on the import page, it says you can share videos from YouTube and a few more sites. The more sites is a hyperlink, and it brings you up this. This gives you the list of all the sites that you can import videos from to your quarter channel. As you can see, it goes it goes quite a way. Yep. And I'm gonna look at the R's. Oh well, PBS apparently. All the PBSs apparently, and the peer tubes, and then I'm sure Rumble. You get Red Bull TV, Reddit R. Where's the RUs? And then there's art. I've never even heard of some of this stuff, but I think
wow.
Rumble is in here somewhere.
I did pull from Rumble because I'm a Rumble channel there, and I had an
Rumble.
episode that was up there, so
Oh,
I
Rumble
pulled it.
Embed is one that's listed there.
Yeah, it had to be that's the specific link because when you use Rumble, there's 3 different links, and it has
Right.
to be like the second one. Um, so
Yeah.
because I don't know why they have 3 different links. I
Right.
do wish that the Rumble UI can be updated for a better user experience, but so far they haven't. They pay more attention to the mobile app for iOS than they do for Android. Android doesn't even have background play, so you have to keep it at the forefront the whole time.
And Trovo's on that list, and True TV's on that list. Of course, you have the different Twitches that you can import. Twitter,
Oh, holy smokes!
USA Today, and USA Networks. As you can see, it's a long list. I
Wow,
guess in theory you can import playlists from YouTube, but I've never actually tried that.
I'll have to try it myself, see what happens. Because if it does, I know it puts it in a queue.
Yeah,
So we'll see if it
because
does that.
that's the way it works on Quarter with this particular script we're using. Is that you upload a video and then it goes to a sharing queue, and then once it reaches 100%, when its turn is up on the sharing queue, then it uploads to your channel if everything goes smoothly.
But what, with all these other video platforms available, though, what inspired you to make your own?
Well, the reason why Quarter exists is because not just YouTube censorship, but because a lot of the early alt tech video sites like BitChute and other alt tech sites like Gab and whatnot, they decided in late 2020, early 2021 to go the route of censorship, implementing hate speech policies or banning people who did nothing wrong, or implementing stuff that's even more draconian than what big tech does. Like on BitChute, there's actually a policy to this day that says that they can censor you even if your videos don't violate any of their community guidelines.
And it's whoever decides that they don't like you that they'll take it down.
Pretty
Is that it?
much, or whatever the UK says, because BitChute in particular is based in the UK, and they basically are at the beck and
Really?
call of whatever Ofcom or other UK groups that pressure them to censor people, pressure them into. So, like
Interesting.
for a year and a half, they were censoring all the results for videos about Hitler, Nazism, and whatever. They like hid the results for those terms, so it looked like there was no such videos with those words in the title, even though there's literally thousands upon thousands of videos with those words in the title. They did that for a year and a half because some Jewish group named Community Security Trust pressured Ofcom into pressuring BitChute to do that, and so they complied. They recently stopped doing that, but only after they lost over half of the fan donations they once had a year and a half ago.
Yeah, well, what you just said there is heavy loaded. So there's 2 things there. One, with respects to the battles of hate speech, and then bringing up certain elements of historical Germany in the 1930s and 1940s that I think we'll eventually discuss in a different matter a little later on. But that's more along the lines of what's considered freedom of speech, which is something that's protected here in the United States. That is not the same thing outside the country.
Yep.
But also with products like Big Shoot being, as you said, run via fan donations. because there was a meter. I remember when I first signed up, there was a meter that set up there's like, oh, we're 100% funded by you or in part funded by you. I never saw that meter move in months. And they usually say like it's monthly, but it was stuck at a certain percentage.
Yeah, prior to me exposing BitChute censorship with Seeking the Truth in early 2021, every time they made a effort to fundraise to do stuff they said they were going to do, they would always meet their goal at some point. Like there was always, the percentage was getting higher as far as the percentage of their goal that they were meeting for their monthly donations. And at one point, they were bringing in almost $55,000 a month in fan donations.
Oh, wow.
Around, I think, late February of 2021. But then I discovered all the censorship they were doing. I started doing videos about it along with Seeking the Truth, although I did more videos about it than he did just because I was invested into that. And I used to donate money to BitChute. So you can imagine my disgust with them censoring stuff. And then I discovered over time that they were a bunch of lying grifters because they promised for years that if they got the fan donations that they got at that point, that they would be able to roll out HD video uploads and live streaming and, public playlists and all this stuff. And they said it's just all so complicated and we need so much money. Well, then I started making friends with Josh and his Joshu TV website, which uses the same script that Quarter uses. And I realized, you can get all this stuff out of the box on this site script. And Josh himself, I think, is spending about $500, $600 a month to run his entire Joshu TV site. And for Quarter, I'm using about a little under $100 a month on average to pay for hosting the site on a server. And I think I have an encoder server that I'm paying for every month that I haven't used yet because we're having issues with it. But it doesn't actually cost much to roll out a fully developed feature-rich video sharing site that's based on an open source script. And so that's kind of when I figured out that BitChute was lying to people about how much it costs to actually run their site. And when Josh made a video about it and shared it on BitChute, they actually censored him for it. They not only shadow banned the video, but they eventually banned the video entirely for several months until I started exposing them for it. And then they magically restored the video, even though they claimed that Josh was the one who had deleted it.
Fascinating.
And yet somehow they had this video just sitting in storage for months, waiting for the right opportunity to restore it when they got crap for it. So shady, crazy stuff. And so not only did BitChute engage in all that censorship stuff, but their website as a product is just crap. And my website, Quarter, proves it, as well as Joshu TV and several others. I'd say pretty much every other video sharing site on the internet as a product, alt tech world and otherwise, is better than BitChute at this point, because just about every video sharing site script comes with HD uploads and live streaming. And in the case of the video script I use, free restreaming and public playlists and easy to use comment moderation systems. And in the script I use, you don't need anything Google to run anything, which is something people have falsely claimed against the script I use. There's no Google stuff involved. But it's not as expensive to create and run a fully developed video sharing site as people want you to believe it is. And that's really where a lot of these grifter sites come in, is that they want you to believe that it costs tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars a month or in a year to run a fully developed social media site, when the truth is it doesn't cost anywhere near that amount. And the money that they're bringing in is either spent on things that have nothing to do with running the site, like, hiring staff, lawyers, etc. Or in the worst case scenario, they're pocketing that extra cash for themselves and enriching themselves.
Which is most likely the case, especially when there's a.
In the case of Ray Vahey, I'm thinking it's more of the latter than the former. I know that they have an office where they have multiple workstations and multiple staff working there, but not enough to need that much money.
Yeah, I've been on BitChute for over a year, and I haven't seen any new features stand out to me, like any new additions in a year.
They
Oh,
made some UI changes in 2019, and then last year they finally added a couple of smaller details in their comment system and whatnot. But
mm,
by and large, the site UI does look the same as when I joined it in 2017.
wow. Yeah. Because I think we touched on it on the pre-interview that there's some features that Corridor has that services like Restream or StreamYard and others, they charge a buttload of money to do, and that is to be able to stream to or broadcast the streams to multiple different channels.
Right.
There's some packages that offer just the one stream or up to 3 streams, up to 10 streams.
Or you
How
have to
many?
pay money to have unlimited streaming options. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all baked into Corridor, which is
Hmm.
crazy because I actually been flexing it these past couple of weeks where I do use StreamYard to broadcast it uh, I think it's LinkedIn, just because LinkedIn doesn't have a custom
Mm.
RMTP, and now there's Twitter, so I stream it to both of those. So that means I manually upload it to YouTube because I
Mm.
pre-fill everything in there. But using StreamYard, I also stream it to Corridor, and then from Corridor, it's streaming to everywhere else. So it's going to Twitch, DLive,
Hmm.
I forget which other place, Telegram, not to Amazon Live, even though I could if I wanted to. But the point
Right.
is that I have 10. Not all of them are active, but I have 10 different places I can broadcast to different channels there on Corridor 2 that I can do so. And I've tested them and they go through, floaty.app, whatever it is called now.
Oh, Float.
Another, yeah, whatever they're calling themselves now. Just I try to have a presence wherever I can that I feel it's probably worthwhile. I can't engage everywhere, but the point is that I am present as many places as I can, just because I like to make myself as uncancelable. I just haven't gone to the extreme where I build my own platforms, as you have, because you also have developed like your own Twitter or Facebook alternatives and things
Mm.
like that. Tell us a little more about those.
Creation Social is actually the first social media site I started. I launched it on December 26, 2020. And the reason why I launched Creation Social was because I was starting to become aware of the censorship that Gab was engaging in.
Mm,
Most notably, in September of 2020, they banned Brett Keane from their site after he questioned why an article written by an atheist about gangbangs was trending on Gab when no one on Gab was interested in that. And so he
interesting.
got banned from Gab right after that. And Brett is someone I've done multiple collabs with, I've talked with over the internet, via email, etc. Like, I know this guy. And it's like, wow. And I know he doesn't do anything that even comes remotely close to violating the terms of service of Gab. And so when that happened, I thought, wow, I can't trust Gab long term as a social media site, which up until that point I had been. And I had
Mm,
been one of Torba's biggest supporters and defending him from the hit pieces that came out on him over those years. But then after I saw that happen, I was like, wow, I can't trust him.
mm,
So that's when I made up my mind to start working on making Creation Social, which took time to figure out, okay, what script do I want to use and how am I going to host this? And, uh, who can I get to help me with setting it up and doing maintenance on it? And all that stuff. And yeah, I was able to launch it on the day after Christmas in 2020, which ironically enough, I think is the same day that Gab TV was launched. That was the one that got more press, but yeah, I launched the same day with Creation Social.
Fascinating.
There's several hundred registered users, but the amount of actives is really small. And I need to overhaul the site here soon. It's just, I got so much stuff going on between
Of course.
family and friends with the holidays and being a content creator and working on quarter stuff. And, that my tech guy for Creation Social is also a busy dude who helps a lot of people with website stuff. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, at some point here in the near future, I need to sit down with him and make the overhaul to Creation Social because there's a bunch of new features for it that I could have that I currently don't. So
Mm,
that'll be a
okay.
future thing.
Okay. Yeah, because you had mentioned, because you wrapped your book that just launched, that also wanted to ask you about that. After you were launching the book, that you were gonna focus your strengths on Creation Social. Is
That is
So
still the plan, but yeah, it's taking a lot longer to get to that second part.
well, it happens. And
Yeah.
I'm currently, I still can. I just don't want to rush it. Launch my or publish my third book in a romantic comedy series in time for Christmas. I'm just down to the last chapter. I just got a few more pages to write and finish editing. I've already edited the rest of my manuscript, so I just need to get that ironed out and finally out the door. But that sat on the back burner for a little bit. Some personal reasons involving having to write the story. Those that know the history will know what that is. I'll tell you off the air, just because I don't want to repeat it again here. But outside of that, is that I ended up rebranding and relaunching what is now known as the Andre Segovia Show, because I did launch this back in 2003. It was an email newsletter, because some people don't know that back then, even if you had a computer, it doesn't mean you could afford internet dial-up, and that was
Right.
something that I didn't have. I had a little keyboard with an LCD display called Mail Station, and it was just for mailing, emailing, and it would piggy bank on the landline to be able to send those emails from way back then. So I started this as a newsletter with engagement with readers. So I treat it as like a talk radio thing, which that red book behind me is all about, because it consolidates every email piece that I ever done together into a radio transcript the way it was meant to be. Because when the blogging became a thing, so I started getting involved in that, and simultaneously I had another blog called the Critic Corner, where I was a movie reviewer. So I did. I was involved with some of the marketing for The Dark Knight, which is a big deal for me as someone that loves
One of my
Batman.
favorite movies.
Yeah, I was one of the first in the world to review that film, if not the first person to review it in the world. At the time, Warner Brothers didn't ask for an NDA, so they didn't say I couldn't review it. They invited me to Universal City Walk to be able to watch it on the IMAX. They told me I could bring one guest, but someone else gave me another invitation, so you can bring up to three. And so I brought a small entourage, and they told my friends that they couldn't get in because there's only one. Like, actually, from Warner Brothers, I can bring them in. It's like, snap, yeah, you can come in. So yeah, it was the highlight of my time doing the Critic Corner. So this is a collection of my movie reviews and articles that I've ever done. I did
Right.
Batman v Superman before it was cool, and this was a long time ago. And I ripped apart the film Watchmen, that actually has held up a lot better, but because they changed the ending compared to the novel. That's why I still have my issues with it. Other than that, it's a phenomenal film, but you have to watch the director's cut, which is something that's better service for Zack Snyder when it comes to his works. But anyway, not to get off on that tangent, but I did that simultaneously when I was covering politics and economics, because I couldn't just stay in the insanity of in the arena of political ideas. I needed to do something that was entertaining, and nowadays everything's kind of overlaps. So I was like, so I ended up retiring from movie reviews, even though I never stopped actually doing it. I just stopped publishing. But when Twitter came along, Twitter became the place that microblogging was considerably easier to do. And I ended up morphing my show, which I had less and less time for as I was finishing my time in university and eventually settling down and getting married. Microblogging became a thing, so Twitter came along the way and helped me a great deal. So the Andre Segovia Show became the newsreel. So it was literally just that. I was just posting news articles because that's all I could do at that point. And every now and then just sit down to be able to do the opinion editorial. When this whole talk about tech, my battles with tech came when I was seeing I guess you could say it's almost a duopoly between Apple and Google that was transpiring. And meanwhile, Research in Motion, better known as BlackBerry, was cratering. And then Symbian was too. Nokia, Microsoft just sucks at mobile. So it's like, I'm like, no, I am a BlackBerry apologetic. I'm an evangelist for BlackBerry. And I was tired of the big content creators covering tech basically sidelining BlackBerry. Is like, dude, you guys don't get what this thing is for. So I still carry two phones. I've been carrying two phones for at least a decade. So I had to jump in and start talking about these things, and that's how my channel exploded. It was called the Tech Corner. So just 3.5 years ago, a little more than that now, I ended up morphing it to the Andre Segovia Show, where I was able to bring what I do for a living over to what my passion is for, and that's tech and everything together to teach people how to work smarter, not harder. So I have practical experience with a lot of things, being able to take phones apart, put them back together, transplanting operating systems, especially on Android. and seeing just the trajectory of where tech was going. So a lot of the stuff that happened was not a surprise, and where things are and where they're going, in some cases, people are just like catching up. I
Hmm.
on my show 2.5 years ago, was it 2.5 years ago? No, 3.5. I warned about the social credit system coming to the United States. I
Hmm.
warned about the overreach that big tech was going to have. Whereas people were like, "Oh, does it have the apps? I want the apps on it. The apps. What apps do you even use?" But that became the thing for why people either went to an iPhone or what they thought was Android, a Samsung, because they thought Samsung equals Android, which in a way it does, but Android doesn't equal Samsung. There's ties in there. Well, with all that being said, I just felt that there was this enormous push into getting to these applications, and then people simultaneously complaining about government spying on them. There's the lack of privacy. It's like, but you're out there geotagging your position, telling people who you're with, what you're doing, and when you're doing it. It's like they don't need to. Big tech just gives them the information. So with all that tracking stuff is how I ended up limiting where I wanted to be present and how I conducted myself on it until I did this because of my business side, sure. But as I try to get my voice out there, how come people weren't seeing my videos? Why did my videos disappear? I have a personal account that's subscribed to my own channel, and sometimes I can't find my own episodes. Like, what happened? And that's how I ended up. It's like, you know what? I gotta go explore other places. And I first landed on Rumble before Rumble became something that was in the media. But I did end up checking him out after the January 6th fiasco that I did cover. If you see my Rumble analytics, censored completely. I had zero traction thereafter until I started taking on the Freedom Phone. So that's when I had uptick again. But that's when I knew I can't even rely on Rumble. I think at the time Rumble was a Canadian company, but they moved their headquarters when they bought locals. They moved to Florida. I was like, okay, so you're going to operate under the rules of the Constitution of the United States or the freedom-loving people of Canada that would.
Well, their Rumble is under the control of Donald Trump's media company. He technically owns it.
Yeah, I heard about that. Like it's not the
That's
Truth
why they
Social.
moved to the
Like,
U.S. too.
it's like TTM something. I always thought it was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles acronym, but
Right.
yeah, I think that's what you're saying. Yeah, that's what you're saying. But I don't recall it being entirely under him. I know that Rumble.
Well, it's the company that owns it, but he owns the company. So technically, in a way, he owns Rumble now.
Okay, all right, because I know
that's why he joined Rumble a while ago.
Yeah, because he joined Rumble, and then Rumble became the infrastructure for Truth Social, and then Truth Social is the first one to advertise, or vice versa. I forget who does what.
Yeah, Truth Social's under that company too. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then that would make sense. So that means locals, where I'm supposedly free from a lot of these things, which I never believe, by the way. But at least it's behind a paywall.
Right.
It's supposed to be, I guess, ex facto belonging to Donald Trump.
Yeah, the what's funny about Rumble is it's actually been around since like 2013 or 2012, but no one ever used it until the GOP establishment started using and promoting it in like later 2020, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that's when everyone just started flocking to it. And from the time I've seen Rumble, it seems like the only way you're going to get views and subs is if you're part of the GOP conservative establishment, or if you're a super popular creator who's popular on other sites, and therefore you keep promoting your Rumble channel and you can build up a following just through that. But if you try to build one up from scratch, like me, you don't get views on your videos. You hardly get any subs. You're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I ended up maxing out at 75 subs on my channel. And I say channel because it's confusing, because there's a user and there's a channel. And you can have your videos appear on your user, but not appear on your channel. So I ended up creating two. Like, okay, so I did my user, and then there's the channel for the user. But I had people subscribing to one, not the other, because they wanted to see the videos. So it's like, hold on, wait, what's going on here? And depending on where you're subbing, that's how you get notified. Because back then, before the notification thing came on, they would email, and they had to subscribe to the emails, whether it was daily, weekly, or monthly, or whatever it was. So I had an impressive first showing on Rumble when I was there for like the first 2 months, November 2020 through January 2021. Thereafter was like, first off, I knew they were shadow banning some of my content because you can't talk about January 6th if it contradicts the narrative. I'm like, hey, I'm
Right.
just showing you the receipts here, man. I'm just telling you I covered this thing as it happened. But besides that, I ended up creating the channel again, and now I'm like, oh look, the channel now has 20 subscribers. But it's like, dude, you're right. Rumble is not a place for small time creators. That's what frustrates me about Rumble. And I reached out to them on every single social media platform as someone that's been on it for over a year. I'm like, dude, when are you guys going to give some love to the small time creators? And they haven't. And they've ignored every request on Twitter, on Truth Social. I think they were on Gap for a time, and then they left. Umaker was there, but now nobody runs it. Parlor, it's like they abandoned their account, even though it's sometimes posted every now and then. It's like, so they don't respond to anything like that, and that really disappointed me. But that's why, like I said, I kept exploring other places. So I am across, I think, about I would say half a dozen to 8 platforms. I don't have it open on me, so I'm not going to open it right now. But so that many, including a Corridor TV, because of that reason.
Yeah, very important to diversify your content and where it shows up. Because as King Solomon said in the book of Ecclesiastes, and this is me paraphrasing it, you should invest in many ventures because you don't know which ones are going to work out and which ones aren't.
Yeah, that's diversify your portfolio. I like that. Yeah. And you quoted from my favorite book of poetry there. So I want to get to that. But speaking of books, because you published your this is your first book that you published in amid all this chaos?
My book I just published is actually my third book. It's my first science fiction novel, though.
Okay.
Yeah, my first 2 books were Christian apologetics books. First one was Another Inconvenient Truth, What Secular America Hates. And then the second one was Another Inconvenient Truth 2, Defending Young Earth Creationism. But then I decided, you know what? I want to do a sci-fi novel, an original superhero novel. I was inspired by the M. Night Shyamalan films, Unbreakable, Split, and Glass. I was also inspired by the Dark Knight trilogy, and I was also heavily inspired by the story of Samson that's found in the Book of Judges, as well as the movie of it that came out in 2018 that I started seeing more recently when I learned about its existence. And yeah, I was looking around at all the dystopian things going on during the height of the whole COVID authoritarianism in 2021. And basically, I was like, you know what? I'm going to create a sci-fi story that is going to be super engaging, super gripping, super violent, but it's going to be very powerful in addressing the crazy stuff we're seeing in our world today. And so that's really what the story of Hanover is. Hanover is, I'm going to bring it up on screen because I have a page for it on my website. Hanover is an original superhero novel, which I got published through Worldware Press, which is run by the same guy that helped me make Creation Social. It is an original superhero novel that puts a modern day version of Samson in our modern day world with the coronavirus authoritarianism that there is. So basically, in a nutshell, well, actually, I'll just read the summary of the book here because this sums it up pretty well without spoiling much. The year is 2025. New COVID-19 variants kept magically appearing. The vaccine and mask mandates never went away. Vaccine passports are now a reality. When the governor of Oregon issues an executive order mandating the use of the VaxPass 9000 in order to buy and sell, the residents of a small Oregon town of Hanover publicly resist the governor's executive order. In retaliation for their dissent, the governor of Oregon unleashes the UN coronavirus task force on the town, resulting in the murder of the residents of Hanover. One man, however, has survived the purge of Hanover. Given the strength of Samson and protected by the Lord, John Barton is appointed by Jesus to judge those responsible for the murder of his town and is sent out on a journey that will cross paths with the UN Coronavirus Task Force, Antifa, the world's greatest assassin, and the evil supernatural forces behind it all. For John to succeed, he must become Hanover. So Hanover is both the name of the town that he's from, and it's also his superhero name. He's essentially the embodiment of his town.
I see.
while simultaneously being appointed by God to judge those responsible for that.
That's fascinating because
But
it actually lends a great segue. I'll let you finish your thought though, but it lends us a
I
great
was going
segue
to
to what's coming
say
up
the
here.
story of Samson, if you've ever read it, in chapter 14 of the account of Samson, it actually explains why the things that happened to Samson happened, as far as the oppression that his people went through during his life, and why all this stuff that happened after the part that I'm referring to happens, mainly with him trying to marry a Philistine woman and then basically being swindled out of marrying her. And then when he got back at the Philistines, they responded by murdering his wife and her dad, which eventually led to him killing 1,000 Philistine soldiers with his bare hands and a donkey's jawbone after the Holy Spirit came upon him. And also what led up to his death, where he killed thousands of Philistines all at once, including most of the leadership they had at the time. The reason why all that stuff happened, though, why God allowed all the bad things to happen to him, and why he empowered Samson by literally pouring the Holy Spirit onto him so he could perform superhuman feats of strength and stamina, according to Judges 14, really early on in the chapter, the reason why all of that happened was because God's purpose for Samson's life was to use him to judge the Philistines, who, for a long time before Samson came around and a long time after Samson came around, the Philistine Empire was basically oppressing the nation of Israel, the Jewish people. They were basically enslaved by this empire. And it went on for hundreds of years, spanning both before and after Samson's life, before that finally ended and the Israel Empire under King David happened. But yeah, Samson was literally brought up by God as an instrument of judgment against evil people. And so with the story of Hanover, if you're familiar with what happened to Samson and why God did the things he did with Samson, it's the same story, just set in our modern, crazy coronavirus, woke lefty, globalist run world.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's like J.K. Rowling once said, not a fan of her work, but she said, if you're familiar with the story of Christ, then you know how Harry Potter's gonna end. Oh, okay. So yeah, I get it. You got a Messiah figure. Got it. All right.
Well,
Okay.
Hanover in particular, though, is not a Messiah figure.
No, he's an instrument of the
He's
Lord.
he's just an ordinary man, other than when the Holy Spirit is poured on him.
Yeah.
Which happens quite a bit in the book. You'll see if you ever read it.
Yeah, well, I am interested. I do want to check it out. I really think that independent content creation is where creativity still lives. So I actually had someone from a different podcast that we brought on. We were talking about that. Is creativity dead? And the discussion was, is wokeism what killed it? And he makes a great point that it wasn't, and it made me reevaluate my points that I was coming in and say, you're right. Creativity was already dead because remakes and just leeching off some comic books and just write off the success of that and poor adaptations. Those existed long before wokeism came along. You could say that woke products are creative, they just suck. So all these things were like no, that's not interesting. So we can't blame wokeism for the death of creativity. We can blame laziness for the death of creativity. I gotta give a shout out to Eric July for taking it upon himself to take on the comic book world and releasing his own comic book, not just launching his own comic, which is like over 90 pages. That's insane. But being able to smash all the records for independent publication of a comic book and already working on the second one. It's like, dude, that's how you do it. You know, it's not cheap, but he got the funding from the people. So that's who he's answering to. And he's putting his money where his mouth is, as they say.
Right.
So he went out to do it. So that's why, to me, I felt that's where it still remains. You know, and there is hope for original content and stories. I have something over here, The Expanse. Right now, it's my favorite science fiction story, perhaps of all time. Right now, at the way the show has been adapted, only adapted several of the novels. They didn't finish it. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel before Amazon picked it up, and then Amazon also sunset the show. But I picked up all the novels because they just finished the novels this year, and I'm excited to continue the story that I didn't get to see finished. But at least I have the soundtrack to listen to while I'm reading it. And pick up a book, people. That's the best way to do it. Just pick up a book. You don't have to sit in front of a screen the whole time. But the point is that it's a phenomenal story that some people try to describe. Oh, it's Game of Thrones in space. Oh, heck no. Yeah, there's some similarities because these guys are the prodigies of George R.R. Martin. The difference is they love their characters and they finished the story. That's not George R.R. Martin. He hates his characters and he still hasn't done the follow-up to Winds of Winter or whatever it is. So I'm not a fan of the story of A Song of Ice and Fire, or the Game of Thrones show was all right for what it was. It's just that, of course, it petered off, and I saw the handwriting on the wall. Like, the show's not going anywhere. Hey, Justin, where can people follow you and learn more about you? I know you're across a ton of places, but what are the principal places people can follow you at?
Well, you can find me on Gab because I am still there. Been there since 2017. You can find me on Getter, or I have the handle TTOR_13, I believe it is. But if you just type in TTOR, you should be able to find me. Yeah. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't really invest much into it because the new management's no different than the old management. And while I am on a slew of video sharing sites, as I mentioned at the beginning, the best place to find me as far as videos would be quarter.tv, and just type in TTOR in the find channel page and you'll find me.
All right, great. Justin, thank you very much for being on the Under Segovia show. Who knows, we might talk again about similar subjects as things get a little more interesting in this sphere.
Very much so. It's a definite possibility.
Yeah, thanks for being on. Don't hang up yet. But for the rest of you, thank you very much. If you didn't get the entire episode, it's all available on the podcast streamers. But you can also get everything, including the links to Justin's stuff, will be available on the show notes accompany this episode at www.theundersegovia.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And I'll see you on the next one.